I always found comfort in shadows, not the kind that makes you tremble, but the type that wraps around you like a soft blanket, hiding the parts of you that don't quite fit anywhere else. In the grand castle of Blackthorn, shadows were my closest companions as I moved silently through corridors with my cleaning cart, invisible to the noble eyes that swept past me. The scent of lavender polish clung to my skin, mixing with the persistent aroma of baking bread from the kitchen where I'd started my day. Dawn had barely broken when I'd begun scrubbing floors, my knees aching against the cold stone. As autumn winds whistled through the ancient castle walls, the sound of distant laughter trickled down from the upper floors where preparations for tonight's grand selection ball were underway. 100 princesses from kingdoms near and far had arrived over the past week, each more beautiful than the last, each dreaming of becoming Luna to our Alpha King. Their perfumes lingered in hallways like ghosts, exotic and expensive, making my homemade soap smell childish in comparison. I'd watched them parade through the castle, their hair styled in elaborate designs, dresses sparkling with jewels that cost more than I would earn in several lifetimes. My own pale blonde hair remained tucked beneath a simple cap, strands occasionally escaping to frame my face, a face deemed too ordinary to draw second glances from anyone who mattered. Elise, stop daydreaming and finish the West Wing before midday. Mrs. Winter's sharp voice cut through my thoughts. The head housekeeper's lips pressed into a thin line of disapproval as she surveyed my progress. The king himself might walk these halls today. Would you want him to see dust on his ancestors' portraits? No, Mrs. Winters. I kept my eyes downcast, fingers tightening around my polishing cloth. The silver pendant at my throat, my mother's last gift before illness took her, felt suddenly heavy against my skin. Mother had always told me it was blessed by the moon goddess herself, though I'd never seen any evidence of divine favor in my life. Remember your place, she added, voice softening slightly. Tonight's festivities aren't for our kind. As she walked away, her keys jingling at her waist like a jailer's, I whispered, I know my place. I always had. But as I moved to the grand windows overlooking the royal gardens, I caught sight of something that made my heart stutter. King Roman, the Alpha who had ruled our kingdom since his father's passing 3 years ago, walked the stone paths below, his broad shoulders set in a rigid line. Even from this distance, I could sense the tension in his powerful frame, the restlessness that seemed to follow him like a shadow of its own. Unlike the nobles who passed me without a glance, I had observed our king for years. I knew how he preferred his study arranged, which books he returned to repeatedly, how he sometimes stood at windows staring at the moon with such longing it made my chest ache in sympathy. I knew these things because good servants are meant to anticipate needs before they're spoken, to exist without being seen. The king stopped suddenly beneath my window, his head tilting upward as though sensing observation. Our eyes met across the impossible distance, his piercing blue gaze finding mine with unsettling precision. Something electric and terrifying passed between us. Recognition, perhaps, though he couldn't possibly know me, before a courtier approached him, breaking the moment. I stumbled back from the window, heart racing, hand pressed to my chest. What had just happened? Kings don't see maids. They look through them, past them, around them. They certainly don't look at them as though trying to place a half-remembered dream. The pendant at my throat felt warm against my skin, almost pulsing with a gentle heat I'd never noticed before. You shouldn't stare at him like that. The voice behind me belonged to Anna, another maid who had worked in the castle since childhood. They say his wolf can sense disloyal thoughts, that he's the most powerful alpha in generations. I wasn't thinking anything disloyal, I protested, though heat rushed to my cheeks. Anna's laugh was without humor. Having any thoughts at all about him is above our station. She leaned closer, voice dropping. They say he's rejected every noble match for years. That's why the council forced this selection upon him. 100 princesses, one for each day of spring. He must choose by the summer solstice, or forfeit his right to choose at all. I knew this already. The whole kingdom buzzed with little else, but I nodded as though this was fresh gossip. Strange that a king so powerful would allow himself to be manipulated this way, I murmured, returning to my polishing. Even the mightiest alpha is bound by tradition and duty, Anna replied with a shrug. Besides, who wouldn't want to choose from 100 beautiful princesses? The maids assigned to their quarters say some of them practice walking for hours to perfect their grace. Others memorize poems to recite should the king engage them in conversation. And what do you think he's looking for? I asked, surprising myself with the boldness of the question. Anna considered this. Power recognizes power. He'll choose whichever princess brings the strongest alliance, the purest bloodline. She glanced at my reflection in the newly polished mirror. Certainly not someone who scrubs floors for a living. I said nothing to this truth, but as Anna left me to my work, I found myself dwelling on the king's expression. It wasn't the look of a man eager to select a bride from a parade of perfection. It was the expression of someone trapped, searching for an escape that didn't exist. Hours later, as twilight descended and the castle transformed into a glittering wonderland of candlelight and flowers, I was assigned to service duty for the grand ball, a rare honor for someone of my rank, Mrs. Winters had emphasized. I suspected it had more to do with several other servants falling ill with autumn fever than any recognition of my abilities. Hidden in plain sight with my tray of delicate champagne flutes, I became truly invisible, a moving piece of furniture the nobles navigated around without acknowledgement. This position afforded me an unprecedented view of the spectacle. 100 princesses in gowns that shimmered like captured stars, their jewelry winking with every movement, their laughter musical and practiced. And there, entering through doors that opened without being touched, was King Roman. The room fell silent, breath collectively held. He moved with the fluid grace of the wolf that lived within him, power contained but never diminished. His formal attire, midnight blue embroidered with silver thread, made his eyes appear almost supernatural in their intensity. Those eyes scanned the room slowly, methodically, a predator assessing his domain. I pressed myself against a column, suddenly desperate not to be seen, though the irony of a servant girl fearing notice wasn't lost on me. The king's counselor, Lord Hayes, stepped forward with an obsequious smile. "Your Majesty, may I present the first selection of princesses for your consideration?" What followed was a procession of beauty and breeding, each princess stepping forward to curtsy and offer a carefully prepared greeting. Some spoke of alliances their unions would forge, others hinted at the purity of their bloodlines or the fertility of their family histories. Each appeared more perfect than the last, yet with each introduction, I watched the king's expression grow more remote, the muscle in his jaw tightening incrementally. "Princess Sophia of the Southern Territories," announced Lord Hayes, as a willowy woman with hair like spun gold stepped forward. She moved with practiced grace, her emerald gown emphasizing eyes of the same shade. "Your Majesty," she said, her voice honey-sweet, "I've crossed oceans for the chance to stand before you tonight. They say the moon goddess herself blessed your lineage, and I can see her light in your eyes." Something dangerous flickered across the king's face. Irritation, perhaps, or simple boredom. He inclined his head in acknowledgement, but offered no words in return. Princess Sophia's perfect smile faltered for just a moment before she retreated, dignity intact, but pride clearly wounded. And so it continued, an endless parade of beauty and ambition. I moved quietly through the crowd, refreshing drinks, collecting empty glasses, observing it all through lowered lashes. The weight of the evening seemed to press down on everyone, the air growing thick with perfume and expectation. It happened as I was replacing an empty champagne flute on my tray. A nobleman, gesturing too emphatically, knocked into me, sending the tray and its contents crashing to the marble floor. The sound was deafening in a momentary lull of conversation, crystal shattering like winter ice breaking apart. The silence that followed was absolute. I dropped immediately to my knees, fingers trembling as I tried to gather the shards, acutely aware of every eye in the room turning toward the disturbance. "Clumsy girl," hissed the nobleman who had caused the accident. "I'm so sorry, my lord," I whispered, not daring to look up, feeling a shard slice into my finger. A drop of blood fell to the white marble, shockingly red. "Leave it." The voice was deep, commanding, a voice accustomed to immediate obedience. The crowd parted like water around stone as King Roman approached. I remained frozen, kneeling among broken crystal. A servant caught in a moment of imperfection. His boots stopped directly before me, polished leather reflecting the candlelight. "Look at me." I raised my eyes slowly, following the impressive height of him. Strong legs, narrow waist, broad chest, until I finally met his gaze. This close, I could see flecks of amber in his blue irises, could feel the heat and power radiating from him like a furnace. Recognition dawned in his expression, followed by something else, something that made my breath catch. "You," he said softly, too quiet for others to hear. From the window, my pendant pulsed against my skin, warm and insistent. The king's eyes dropped to it, widening slightly. Without warning, He reached down, not to help me up as I momentarily thought, but to touch the silver crescent that had escaped the confines of my uniform. The moment his fingers brushed the metal, and inadvertently my skin, a visible shock passed between us. He drew back sharply, eyes flashing wolf gold for the briefest moment. Around us, the court held its collective breath. "What is your name?" he demanded, voice roughened. "Elise, Your Majesty." My voice emerged surprisingly steady. Something shifted in his expression. Recognition, wonder, determination, all passing too quickly to interpret. He straightened to his full height, turning to address the stunned gathering, but his eyes kept returning to mine. "I believe I've had enough entertainment for one evening," he announced. "Lord Hayes, see that everyone enjoys the remainder of the ball." Without another word or glance at the bewildered princesses, King Roman extended his hand to me. "Come with me." Murmurs erupted throughout the ballroom, shock rippling through the assembled nobility. Princess Sophia stepped forward, her perfect features contorted with indignation. "Your Majesty, surely you cannot be leaving with a servant." She spoke the last word as though it tasted foul on her tongue. The king's gaze never left my face, his hand still extended toward me. "I do not recall asking for your opinion, Princess." The collective gasp was audible. I remained frozen, unable to process what was happening, much less respond appropriately. "Elise," he said, my name softer on his lips this time. "Please." That single word, "please," from the lips of the most powerful alpha in the kingdom broke through my paralysis. With trembling fingers, I placed my hand in his, ignoring the sharp sting where crystal had cut my skin. His fingers closed around mine, warm and sure, and he helped me to my feet with surprising gentleness. Without releasing my hand, he guided me toward the doorway, the crowd parting before us in stunned silence. I could feel hundreds of eyes boring into my back, the weight of confusion and outrage almost tangible. As the grand doors closed behind us, cutting off the wave of whispers that had finally broken free, I found myself alone in the corridor with the king, my hand still clasped in his, my heart pounding so loudly I was certain he could hear it with his enhanced senses. "Your Majesty," I began, voice barely above a whisper. "I don't understand." "Neither do I," he interrupted, his gaze intense as he studied my face, "but I intend to find out." He released my hand only to examine my injured finger, his touch unexpectedly gentle. "You're bleeding." "It's nothing," I assured him, embarrassed by his attention to such a minor wound. "It's not nothing," he countered, producing a handkerchief from his pocket and wrapping it carefully around my finger. "Nothing about you is nothing, Elise." The way he said my name sent a shiver down my spine. Kings didn't learn servants' names, didn't notice them, didn't care if they bled. "Why did you bring me out here?" I asked, summoning courage I didn't know I possessed. His expression softened slightly. "Because when I touched your pendant, I felt something I've never experienced before. Because when our eyes met this morning, I knew I had seen you before, though we've never spoken. And because in a room full of princesses bred for this very moment, you were the only one who looked at me as though you saw me. Not a crown, not a title, but me." Before I could respond, footsteps approached rapidly from around the corner. Lord Hayes appeared, his face flushed with agitation. "Your Majesty, I must protest this irregular behavior. The princesses will wait," the king finished, voice suddenly cold. "As will you, Hayes." The counselor's mouth opened and closed several times before he managed to speak again. "The agreements, the alliances, years of diplomatic work, mean nothing if I'm to be trapped in a loveless political match," King Roman interrupted. "The selection will continue tomorrow. For tonight, I wish to speak privately with Miss Elise." Lord Hayes's gaze shifted to me, assessment quickly turning to disdain. "A servant girl, sire? This will cause a diplomatic incident. Then diplomatically handle it," the king replied, his tone making it clear the conversation was over. "Elise and I have matters to discuss." Without waiting for a response, he placed his hand at the small of my back, guiding me away from the sputtering counselor. We walked in silence through corridors I had cleaned countless times, but now seemed transformed by his presence beside me. "Where are we going?" I finally asked, acutely aware of his hand still resting at my back, the heat of it penetrating the thin fabric of my uniform. "Somewhere we can talk without the entire court pressing their ears to the door," he replied, the hint of a smile softening his features. We ascended a spiral staircase I recognized as leading to the Western Tower, the king's private sanctuary, off limits to all but his most trusted attendants. My pulse quickened at the impropriety of it all. A servant alone with the king in his private chambers would spark rumors that could destroy what little reputation I had. "Your Majesty," I began hesitantly, "perhaps this isn't wise. People will talk." "Let them," he said simply, opening a heavy wooden door and gesturing for me to enter ahead of him. I stepped into a room unlike any I had seen in the castle, a circular space with windows facing each cardinal direction, shelves crammed with books and curious objects, comfortable furniture arranged around a central fireplace where flames danced merrily. It felt less like a king's formal chamber, and more like a scholar's retreat. "Please sit," he said, indicating a cushioned chair near the fire. I perched on the edge, too uncomfortable to relax, too confused to speak. The king moved to a small cabinet, producing 2 crystal glasses and a decanter of amber liquid. He poured a measure into each glass, offering one to me. "For the shock," he explained at my hesitation. "Tonight has been unexpected for us both." I accepted the glass, but only held it, afraid that alcohol would loosen my tongue when I most needed my wits about me. The king settled in the chair opposite mine, studying me over the rim of his glass as he took a sip. "That pendant," he said after a moment, nodding toward the silver crescent still visible at my neck. "Where did you get it?" "It was my mother's," I answered, instinctively touching the cool metal. "She gave it to me before she died. She said it was blessed by the moon goddess." Something flickered in his eyes. Recognition, perhaps. "May I see it more closely?" I hesitated, then reached behind my neck to unfasten the chain, holding the pendant out in my palm. The king leaned forward, his fingers brushing mine as he lifted the crescent, examining the intricate symbols etched into the silver. "Do you know what these markings mean?" he asked, his voice oddly gentle. I shook my head. My mother never explained them. She only said the pendant would protect me, that it would guide me to my destiny when the time was right. He returned the pendant to my palm, closing my fingers over it with his larger hand. "Your mother was wise. These symbols are ancient wolf tongue, the original language of my kind. They speak of the moon's chosen, those rare souls who can bridge the gap between wolf and human, between power and compassion." "But that can't have anything to do with me," I protested. "I'm just a servant, human, ordinary." The king's smile held secrets. "Are you? Tell me, Elise, have you ever felt different from others? Ever sensed things you couldn't explain? Known things you shouldn't know?" The question penetrated deeper than I was comfortable admitting. All my life, I had hidden the strange sensations that occasionally overwhelmed me, knowing when storms would break before clouds gathered, sensing emotions from others as though they were scents in the air, dreaming of running beneath moonlight with impossible freedom. My silence seemed answer enough for him. He leaned forward, eyes intent on mine. "The first time I saw you wasn't this morning at the window. I've dreamed of you for years, a girl with moon-blessed hair and eyes that see too much, standing at a crossroads between worlds." "That's impossible," I whispered, though something deep inside me resonated with his words. "Is it?" He rose, moving to the eastern window where the night sky was visible, stars scattered like diamonds across black velvet. "The moon rises in an hour. When it does, we'll have our answer." "Answer to what?" I asked, setting down my untouched drink and standing as well, drawn to his certainty despite my confusion. He turned to face me, the distance between us suddenly charged with something I couldn't name. "To whether you are what I believe you to be, the true Luna my wolf has been searching for, the one the moon goddess herself has chosen to balance my strength with wisdom, my power with compassion." "But the princesses were sent by ambitious parents seeking political advantage," he finished. "None of them called to my wolf. None of them made the royal blood in my veins sing as it did when our eyes met." He stepped closer, close enough that I could feel the heat radiating from his powerful body, could detect the scent of pine and winter air that clung to his skin. "Tell me you felt nothing when our hands touched," he challenged softly. "Tell me your dreams have never been filled with a wolf you couldn't quite see but somehow knew." I couldn't lie. Not to him. Not about this. "I've dreamed of running beneath the moon," I admitted, voice barely audible. "Of belonging somewhere I've never been." Something like triumph flashed in his eyes. "The moon goddess doesn't make mistakes, Elise. She guides true pairs together across any distance, any barrier of circumstance or station." A knock at the door interrupted whatever he might have said next. His expression darkened with irritation as he moved to answer it. Lord Hayes stood there, flanked by 2 other council members, their faces grave. "Your Majesty, forgive the intrusion," But this situation requires immediate attention. The Southern delegation threatens to withdraw from all treaties if you do not return to the selection immediately. The king's posture stiffened. My personal matters are not subject to diplomatic blackmail. The oldest counselor, a white-haired man I recognized as Lord Bennet, stepped forward. Sire, we do not presume to dictate your personal choices, but the timing is problematic. Perhaps if you would return to the ball and simply complete the ceremonial introductions, this girl could be discreetly accommodated later. The suggestion, with its implication that I was merely a physical distraction to be hidden away, sent heat flooding my cheeks. I stepped back, suddenly aware of how this must appear to the council. Their king abandoning a crucial diplomatic event to seclude himself with a servant girl. I should go, I said quickly, moving toward the door. This was a mistake. No. The king's voice carried absolute authority, stopping me mid-step. You will stay, Elise. He turned back to the counselors, his expression cold. You overstep. The selection was your idea, not mine. I agreed to meet the princesses, not to make an immediate choice, but to walk out with a maid, Lord Hayes began. Is my prerogative as king? Roman finished sharply. Now leave us. I will address the court when I am ready, not before. The counselors exchanged troubled glances but bowed and withdrew, closing the door behind them. In the silence that followed, I could almost feel the weight of the castle's expectations pressing down upon us both. I've caused you trouble, I said quietly. The alliance with the southern territories was always fragile, he interrupted, returning to stand before me. They seek leverage, not partnership. True strength comes from genuine bonds, not political maneuvering. Through the eastern window, I could see the moon beginning to rise, its silver edge just visible above the distant mountains. The sight of it sent an unexpected thrill through me, as though my body recognized something my mind did not yet understand. The king followed my gaze, then looked back at me with an intensity that made my heart race. It begins, he said softly, the moment of truth. As moonlight spilled into the room, touching my skin with silver radiance, something within me shifted, not painfully, but as though pieces of myself long separated were finally aligning. Warmth spread from my pendant throughout my body, and suddenly my senses sharpened, the world around me coming into clearer focus than I had ever experienced. I could smell the king's anticipation, a spicy, rich scent that hadn't been perceptible moments before. I could hear the rapid beating of his heart, matching the accelerated rhythm of my own. Most disorienting of all, I could sense his emotions like colors in the air around him. Hope, wonder, and something deeper, more primal. Your eyes, he whispered, stepping closer. They've changed. Changed how? I asked, my voice sounding strange to my own ears. Silver, he answered, wonder in his tone, like moonlight captured in human form. His hand rose to cup my cheek, his touch gentle despite the power I could feel contained within him. The mark of the true Luna. I should have been frightened by the transformation happening within me, by the strangeness of it all, but instead, I felt an overwhelming sense of rightness, as though I had finally discovered a truth my heart had always known. What does this mean? I asked, leaning almost unconsciously into his touch. It means, he said, his voice deepening with emotion, that while 100 princesses dreamed of becoming Luna, the moon goddess had already chosen my humble maid. The world seemed to pause around us, the moment suspended between one heartbeat and the next. Then, with infinite gentleness, King Roman lowered his lips to mine in a kiss that felt like coming home after a lifetime of wandering. And in that moment, surrounded by moonlight and the scent of possibility, I understood that my mother had been right all along. The pendant had indeed guided me to my destiny, a destiny that had been written in silver light long before I knew my own heart. The kiss lasted only moments, but it altered everything. As King Roman drew back, his eyes still glowing with amber fire, a new awareness flowered between us, a connection that transcended the physical, linking us in ways I couldn't yet fully comprehend. You feel it too, he said, not a question but a confirmation, his voice roughened with emotion. I nodded, unable to find words for the sensation rippling through me, a pull like gravity, a recognition of something essential that had been missing until this moment. The pendant at my throat glowed softly with moonlight, no longer just reflecting, but seeming to generate its own luminescence. The Luna bond, he explained, his fingers gently tracing the line of my jaw, rare even among werewolves, almost unheard of between an alpha and a human. But I'm not, I hesitated, unsure what I was anymore. Something's changing in me. The moon's blessing is awakening what was always there, dormant within you. His thumb brushed across my lower lip, the touch sending sparks along my skin. You carry wolf blood, Elise, diluted perhaps through generations, but responding now to its match. Before I could question him further, angry voices approached from the corridor outside. The king's expression darkened, his posture shifting subtly to place himself between me and the door. Your Majesty, Lord Hayes's voice carried clearly through the heavy wood. The southern delegation demands an audience immediately. Roman sighed, reluctance evident in the set of his shoulders. This won't end until I address it. He turned to me, his expression softening. Wait here. I'll return as soon as I can. Perhaps I should go back to the servants' quarters, I suggested, suddenly aware of how far I'd stepped beyond my place. This is causing too much disruption. His hand settled on my shoulders, firm but gentle. No, your place is no longer in the shadows, Elise. Everything has changed tonight. He smiled, the expression transforming his features from regal to boyishly charming. Besides, my wolf would tear the castle apart searching for you if you disappeared now. The possessiveness in his voice should have frightened me, but instead, it sent a shiver of pleasure down my spine. Something within me, the part awakening under the moonlight, responded to his claim with satisfaction rather than fear. I'll wait, I promised. He pressed another brief kiss to my forehead before striding to the door, his bearing once again every inch the Alpha King as he prepared to confront the diplomatic crisis our connection had sparked. Once alone, I moved to the eastern window where moonlight still streamed in, drawn to it as I'd never been before. My reflection in the glass startled me. My eyes indeed shimmered with silver light, my features somehow sharper, more defined than I remembered. Even my blonde hair seemed to capture and hold the moonlight, glowing like spun silver around my face. The door opened again, but instead of the king, a woman entered, tall, elegant, with iron-gray hair swept into an intricate knot, and piercing eyes that assessed me with unnerving thoroughness. I recognized her immediately as Lady Isabel, the king's aunt and most trusted advisor. So, she said without preamble, you're the maid who's thrown the entire diplomatic corps into chaos. I dropped into a hasty curtsy. My lady, I didn't intend. Intentions matter little in the face of consequences, she interrupted, closing the door behind her. Look at me, child. Let me see what my nephew sees. I straightened, meeting her gaze directly despite years of training to keep my eyes lowered in the presence of nobility. Lady Isabel circled me slowly, her scrutiny almost tangible against my skin. The pendant, she said finally, gesturing toward my throat. May I examine it? I removed the necklace again, placing it in her outstretched palm. Lady Isabel turned it over in her fingers, her expression revealing nothing as she studied the ancient markings. Where did you get this? She asked, voice carefully neutral. It was my mother's. She gave it to me before she died. And your mother? Who was she? Clara Evans. She worked in the village laundry until fever took her when I was 12. Lady Isabel's eyes narrowed slightly. Before that, where did she come from? The question touched on mysteries I'd never been able to solve. She never spoke of her past, my lady. When I asked, she would only say that some doors are better left closed. Something flickered in Lady Isabel's expression. Recognition or confirmation. I couldn't tell which. She returned the pendant to me with surprising gentleness. This crescent bears the mark of the Silver Mist Pack, a northern clan thought destroyed in the border wars 30 years ago. She watched me closely as she continued. They were known for producing females with rare gifts, moon speakers, healers, true lunas capable of balancing even the most dominant alphas. Their bloodlines were coveted and feared. My fingers closed around the pendant, its familiar weight suddenly laden with new significance. You think my mother was from this pack? I think, Lady Isabel said carefully, that coincidences rarely exist in matters of moon-blessed bloodlines. She moved toward the fire, warming her hands as she continued. My nephew has rejected every suitable match presented to him for years. His wolf has been restless, searching. And now, on the very night 100 princesses gather to vie for his attention, he finds you, a maid with mysterious heritage and silver eyes. The implication was clear in her tone. You think I orchestrated this somehow, I said, unable to keep the hurt from my voice. Lady Isabel turned back to me, her expression softening slightly. No, child. I think the moon goddess orchestrated it, which is far more significant. She gestured to a chair, taking the one opposite as I hesitantly sat. "Tell me, what do you know of the role of Luna?" I shook my head. "Very little. I know she's the Alpha King's mate, his queen, but the details of werewolf customs aren't shared with human servants. The Luna is far more than a royal consort," Lady Isabel explained, her voice taking on the cadence of a teacher. "She is the spiritual center of the pack, the balance to the Alpha's raw power. Where he leads with strength, she guides with wisdom. Where he commands, she nurtures. The strongest packs arise when Alpha and Luna form a true bond, mind to mind, heart to heart, soul to soul." She leaned forward, her gaze intense. "A true Luna can calm her Alpha's rage with a touch, can sense threats to the pack that physical senses miss, can communicate with her mate across vast distances. Such pairings are vanishingly rare, perhaps once in several generations. And you believe I could be this true Luna?" The idea seemed absurd, that I, who had spent my life scrubbing floors and polishing silver, could hold such spiritual significance. "What I believe matters less than what my nephew's wolf recognizes," Lady Isabel replied, "and what the moon has revealed in your eyes tonight." She sighed, leaning back in her chair. "The diplomatic implications are considerable. Many kingdoms sent their princesses with expectations of alliance through marriage. I never meant to cause trouble," I said softly. "Perhaps it would be better if I left the castle entirely, gave the king a chance to make a more suitable match." Lady Isabel's laughter surprised me, a rich, genuine sound I wouldn't have expected from her austere demeanor. "Oh, child, if you are indeed his true Luna, separating you would drive his wolf mad, and if the changes I see beginning in you continue, your own emerging wolf would suffer equally." "My own wolf?" I repeated, stunned. "But I'm human. Are you? Those silver eyes suggest otherwise. The wolf blood may be diluted in your veins, dormant until called forth by proximity to your true mate, but it is awakening now." She gestured toward the window, where the full moon hung like a silver medallion in the night sky. "By the next full moon, we'll know the extent of your heritage." A knock at the door interrupted us, and Lady Isabel rose gracefully to answer it. A servant handed her a folded note, which she read quickly, her expression growing troubled. "It seems the diplomatic situation is deteriorating," she said, tucking the note into her sleeve. "The southern delegation threatens to leave immediately, insulted by my nephew's disregard for protocol. The eastern princesses are demanding explanations, and the western alliance is intrigued by the disruption. All because of me," I whispered, guilt weighing heavily on my shoulders. "All because of ancient magic that supersedes human politics," Lady Isabel corrected firmly. "Come, child. It's time you were properly presented to the court." "Presented?" I looked down at my servant's uniform, still stained in places from my work, hardly suitable for court appearance. "Like this?" Lady Isabel's eyes twinkled with unexpected mischief. "Oh, I think we can do better than that." She crossed to a tapestry hanging on the wall and pulled it aside, revealing a hidden door. "This passage leads to my chambers. I believe I have something that might suit you better than that apron." 30 minutes later, I stared at my reflection in Lady Isabel's ornate mirror, barely recognizing myself. She had dressed me in a gown of silver blue silk that flowed like water around my body, its simple lines emphasizing my slender frame, rather than attempting to create the illusion of curves I didn't possess. My blonde hair, freed from its cap and pins, fell in soft waves past my shoulders, adorned only with a delicate silver circlet. Most striking of all were my eyes, still gleaming silver in the candlelight, giving my otherwise ordinary features an otherworldly quality that transformed me from plain to something else. Not conventionally beautiful like the princesses, but compelling in a way I'd never been before. "The dress was mine when I was younger," Lady Isabel explained, making a final adjustment to the circlet, "before I chose the path of royal advisor over that of wife and mother." "It's beautiful," I said, touching the fabric reverently, "but I don't know if I can face the court. All those princesses." "You can and will," she replied firmly. "Not as a servant thrust inappropriately into the spotlight, but as a woman of mysterious lineage, possibly the last descendant of a noble werewolf clan. The story matters, Elise. Perception shapes reality at court." She placed my mother's pendant around my neck, the silver crescent now resting visibly against my skin, rather than hidden beneath clothing. "This is your heritage, your claim. Wear it proudly." "And if they reject me anyway?" I asked, voicing my deepest fear. "Then they reject the moon goddess's choice," Lady Isabel said simply. And Roman has never much cared for others' opinions when his wolf knows its own mind. We descended to the great hall through the main staircase, my heart pounding with each step. Lady Isabel had instructed me to walk tall, to meet every gaze directly, to remember that I entered not as a servant seeking above my station, but as the moon's chosen. Easier said than done when my legs trembled beneath silk skirts, when every instinct honed through years of service screamed at me to lower my eyes, to make myself small and unobtrusive. The doors to the great hall stood open, revealing the glittering assemblage still in full attendance despite the late hour. Conversations hushed as Lady Isabel entered, then fell completely silent as I appeared beside her. I could feel the weight of hundreds of stares, assessing, judging, speculating about my transformed appearance. King Roman stood at the center of the room, engaged in what appeared to be a tense conversation with the southern delegation. His head lifted at the sudden silence, eyes searching until they found me at the entrance. Something powerful flashed across his face, pride, possessiveness, and a heat that made my cheeks flush despite the distance between us. He excused himself from the diplomats and strode toward me, the crowd parting before him. When he reached me, he took my hand and raised it to his lips, the gesture both courtly and intimately possessive. "You look radiant," he said, his voice carrying in the hushed room, like moonlight given human form. Behind him, Princess Sophia stepped forward, her perfect features arranged in diplomatic concern. "Your Majesty, while this display is certainly charming, perhaps we might return to the matters of state that gathered us here tonight." Roman turned, keeping my hand firmly in his. "The matter of state that gathered us here was the selection of my Luna. I believe that matter is progressing precisely as the moon goddess intended." Murmurs rippled through the crowd, shock, outrage, and confused speculation mixing in equal measure. Lord Hayes approached, his expression carefully neutral, though tension radiated from his rigid posture. "Sire, might I suggest a more measured approach? Perhaps Miss Elise could be properly investigated, her lineage confirmed, before any formal announcements are made." It was Lady Isabel who answered, her voice carrying the weight of her position as royal advisor. "The pendant Miss Elise wears bears the crest of the Silver Mist Pack, a noble werewolf clan of the Northern Territories, believed lost during the border wars. Her mother, who lived quietly as a village laundress, clearly protected her heritage for reasons we may yet discover." This revelation sent a fresh wave of whispers through the gathering. A werewolf lineage, however distant or diluted, elevated me from completely unsuitable to merely controversial. Princess Sophia's emerald eyes narrowed as she assessed me with new calculation. Even if she carries some trace of werewolf blood, she remains untrained, unschooled in court politics and diplomacy, hardly suitable as Luna to the most powerful alpha in the 7 territories. "The moon chooses based on the heart's truth, not political convenience," Roman replied, his tone hardening slightly. "But to address your concerns, Lady Isabel will oversee Elise's education in court protocol and diplomatic matters. She will not be presented as Luna until the next full moon, when her transformation will either be completed or proven false." This compromise seemed to mollify some of the tension in the room, though Princess Sophia's perfect features remained set in barely concealed displeasure. "And what of the alliances your marriage was meant to secure?" asked the Eastern ambassador, an elderly man with shrewd eyes. "The Southern Territories offer military protection for our shared borders. The Western Kingdom controls trade routes essential to your economy." Roman's grip on my hand tightened slightly. "Alliances need not depend solely on marriage. Trade agreements, mutual defense pacts, cultural exchanges, all can be negotiated separately. The strength of my rule, of my pack, depends first on having the right Luna at my side." His words, spoken with such certainty, sent a wave of warmth through me even as they heightened my anxiety. I was acutely aware of my inadequacies, my lack of education, my ignorance of court politics, my lifetime spent in service rather than leadership. As though sensing my doubt, Roman turned to me, his voice softening. "The wolf recognizes what the mind may question. Trust that, Elise." Before I could respond, a commotion at the back of the hall drew everyone's attention. A messenger burst through the crowd, face flushed with exertion. "Your Majesty, Northern raiders have crossed the border near Stonebridge Village. They've burned 3 settlements and are moving south toward the capital." The atmosphere in the room transformed instantly from diplomatic tension to focused alarm. Roman released my hand, immediately shifting into the role of military commander. "How many?" he demanded, already moving toward his generals who had gathered at the news. "Reports suggest 200 warriors, sire. They bear the Black Wolf banner." A collective gasp rippled through the court. Even I knew what that meant. The Black Fang Pack, notorious for their brutality, led by an alpha whose hatred for Roman's lineage stemmed from ancient blood feuds. "Prepare the royal guard," Roman ordered. "I ride within the hour." Lord Hayes stepped forward, concern evident in his expression. "Sire, perhaps the defense should be led by your generals while you remain to coordinate from the castle. With the diplomatic situation so delicate, an alpha protects what is his." Roman cut him off, voice brooking no argument. "I will not hide behind castle walls while my people are threatened." The next hour passed in a blur of activity as the court dispersed, military preparations overshadowing the earlier romantic drama. I found myself pulled along in Lady Isabel's wake, unsure of my place in this crisis, yet unwilling to return to the servants' quarters as though nothing had changed. We ended up in the castle's central courtyard, where soldiers mounted on massive war horses gathered in formation. Roman emerged from the armory, transformed from formal court attire to battle leathers, a sword strapped to his back. Even from a distance, I could sense the change in him, the civilized veneer giving way to something more primal, the wolf closer to the surface as he prepared to defend his territory. Lady Isabel guided me toward him, cutting through the organized chaos with the confidence of someone long accustomed to crisis. Roman's eyes found mine immediately, softening briefly before returning to their battle-focused intensity. "You're leaving," I said unnecessarily, suddenly afraid in ways I didn't fully understand. The newly awakened connection between us thrummed with tension, my body instinctively resisting the imminent separation. "I must." His voice was gentle despite its urgency. "The Black Fang Alpha has waited years for a moment of perceived weakness to strike. This attack, so precisely timed during the selection ceremony, cannot be coincidence." The implication hung in the air between us. Our unexpected connection had created exactly the kind of diplomatic disruption an enemy might exploit. "Be careful," I whispered, inadequate words for the storm of emotions churning within me. Instead of the quick, formal farewell I expected, Roman pulled me close, one hand cradling the back of my head as he pressed his forehead to mine in a gesture that felt ancient, instinctual. "The bond between us is new, still forming," he murmured, his breath warm against my skin. "But if you feel fear, pain, or threat of any kind while I'm gone, focus on the pendant. Call to me through it. I will hear you." "How?" I asked, bewildered by the instruction, yet somehow certain it wasn't mere superstition. "The wolf knows its mate," he answered simply. "The moon will guide us." Before I could question him further, he captured my lips in a kiss far less restrained than our first, a claiming, a promise, and a farewell wrapped into one breathtaking moment. Then he was pulling away, mounting his massive black stallion with fluid grace. "Watch over her," he instructed Lady Isabel. "She is precious beyond measure." With that, he signaled to his captain, and the royal guard thundered out of the courtyard, leaving a cloud of dust and a castle in turmoil behind them. Lady Isabel's hand settled on my shoulder. "Come, child. We have much to discuss and little time. The next days will test you in ways you cannot yet imagine." As I followed her back into the castle, I could feel eyes upon me. Servants who had been my companions yesterday now regarding me with confusion and suspicion. Nobles assessing my sudden elevation with calculation. Princesses watching with barely concealed hostility. Particularly Princess Sophia, whose emerald gaze followed my progress across the entrance hall with an intensity that sent a chill down my spine. In that moment, I realized that while the king had ridden off to face a known enemy, I remained surrounded by less obvious but equally dangerous threats. The pendant at my throat pulsed warmly against my skin, as though responding to my anxiety. I touched it gently, drawing comfort from its familiar contours, wondering what secrets it might hold beyond those Lady Isabel had already revealed, and wondering, too, what hidden strength I might need to find within myself before Roman returned. If I was to be worthy of the role the moon goddess had apparently chosen for me, a role I still scarcely understood yet could no longer deny. Dawn broke with uncertain light, gray clouds gathering on the horizon like portents. I stood at the window of my new chambers, no longer the shared servants' quarters, but a suite adjacent to Lady Isabel's, hastily prepared on her orders after the king's departure. The room was modest by noble standards, but luxurious beyond anything I had known. A feather bed with soft linens, a copper tub for bathing, a wardrobe filled with simple but elegant gowns Lady Isabel had provided. Sleep had eluded me throughout the night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Roman riding into danger, felt the phantom pressure of his lips against mine, heard his voice instructing me to call through the pendant if I needed him. The connection between us, though new, had settled into my awareness like a golden thread stretching beyond the horizon, simultaneously comforting and concerning. A soft knock announced Lady Isabel's arrival. She entered carrying a tray laden with bread, fruit, and steaming tea, an unexpected gesture from a noblewoman. "You didn't come down for breakfast," she noted, setting the tray on a small table. "You must keep up your strength." "I wasn't sure where I was supposed to eat," I admitted, accepting the cup of tea she offered. "I don't know my place anymore." Lady Isabel's expression softened. "Your place is evolving, Elise. In the span of a single evening, you've moved from servant to potential Luna. Such transitions are rarely smooth." She gestured for me to sit, particularly when they occur during a border crisis. I settled across from her, still unused to being served rather than serving. "Have there been any messages from the king?" A rider arrived at dawn. Roman and his guard reached Stonebridge before midnight. The Black Fang raiders had already moved on to the next village. Her lips pressed into a grim line. "They're following a pattern of destruction meant to draw him further from the castle, away from reinforcements." "It's a trap," I whispered, the realization bringing a knot of fear to my stomach. "Roman knows this," she assured me. "He is no inexperienced warrior to be lured into obvious danger, but he cannot allow his people to be slaughtered while he remains safe behind castle walls." I nodded, understanding the impossible position he faced, balancing tactical wisdom against an alpha's instinctive need to protect his territory. "Now," Lady Isabel continued, her tone shifting to brisk efficiency, "we have much to accomplish while he's away. Your education must begin immediately if you're to face the court as a potential Luna, rather than a servant suddenly above her station." The next hours passed in a whirlwind of instruction, proper forms of address for various nobles, the complex hierarchies of the 7 territories, the history of diplomatic relations between werewolf packs and human kingdoms. Lady Isabel was a demanding teacher, correcting my posture, my speech patterns, my table manners with gentle but insistent guidance. By midday, my head swam with information, the names and titles of foreign dignitaries blurring together. Lady Isabel finally called a halt to our lessons, noting my fatigue with sympathetic eyes. "You're doing remarkably well," she said, closing the heavy book of diplomatic protocols. "Most young women spend years preparing for court life. You're attempting to learn it in days." "It feels impossible," I confessed. "There's so much I don't know, so many ways to cause offense without meaning to." "The court will forgive minor breaches of etiquette from Romans chosen," she assured me. "What they will watch for is your character, your grace under pressure, your compassion, your loyalty." She touched the pendant at my throat gently. "And your connection to the moon's blessing, which already manifests in ways they cannot deny." My hand rose instinctively to the silver crescent. "You said this bears the mark of the Silver Mist Pack. If my mother was truly from their bloodline, why hide it? Why live as a human laundress rather than seeking protection among werewolves?" Lady Isabel's expression grew troubled. The destruction of the Silver Mist Pack was no ordinary border skirmish. It was a targeted elimination, some would say a slaughter. She moved to the window, gazing out at the gathering clouds. They were known for their females, with rare spiritual gifts, abilities that some found threatening to the established order. Who would feel threatened by such gifts? "Those who prefer power concentrated in physical strength alone," she replied carefully. "The Silver Mist philosophy held that true pack strength came from balance, the alpha's power guided by the Luna's wisdom. Not all alphas welcome such partnership in leadership." The implication hung in the air between us. "You think my mother fled her own kind, not humans?" Lady Isabel nodded slowly. "It would explain much. Why she hid in a human village, why she never spoke of her past, why she gave you the pendant only on her deathbed. She was protecting you from those who might have recognized your bloodline." A chill ran through me despite the room's warmth. "And now that bloodline has been revealed to the entire court, protected by Roman's claim," she reminded me. "But yes, your visibility brings both opportunity and risk." She straightened. "Decision made. Which is why your next lesson cannot wait. Come with me." Lady Isabel led me through the castle to a part I had never been permitted to enter, the Eastern Tower, said to house the royal family's private training grounds. We descended a spiral staircase into a vast underground chamber lit by crystal lamps that cast blue-white light across sand-covered floors. "This is where young wolves learn to control their abilities," she explained, moving to a cabinet along the wall, "where they practice the shift between forms, learn to harness their enhanced senses, develop the mental disciplines that prevent the wolf from overwhelming human consciousness." She selected a slender wooden box and brought it to me, opening it to reveal a simple silver bracelet etched with symbols similar to those on my pendant. "This training band will help you access and control your emerging abilities," she said, fastening it around my wrist. The Silver Mist were particularly skilled at moon calling, the ability to draw strength directly from lunar energy, even when the moon is not visible. "I have no idea how to do that," I admitted, examining the bracelet with uncertainty. "Your blood remembers, even if your mind does not." Lady Isabel moved to the center of the sand circle. "Close your eyes. Feel the connection to your pendant, to the bracelet. They are attuned to your lineage, designed to amplify what already exists within you." Feeling somewhat foolish but unwilling to disappoint her, I closed my eyes, focusing on the gentle weight of the silver against my skin. At first, I felt nothing beyond ordinary awareness, but gradually, a subtle warmth began to build, first in the pendant, then the bracelet, then spreading through my body like honey poured from a height. "Good," Lady Isabel's voice came from what seemed a great distance. "Now, reach for the connection you feel with Roman. The bond is new but already established. Find the golden thread between you." I concentrated on the sensation I'd been aware of since our kiss, that subtle tether stretching beyond the horizon. To my surprise, it responded to my attention, growing more tangible, more defined. "I can feel it," I whispered, amazed. "Follow it," she instructed. "Not to reach him, he's too far for that yet, but to confirm the connection exists. A true bond cannot be faked or forced. It simply is." I focused on the golden thread, allowing my consciousness to flow along it like water following a channel. Distant impressions filtered back: determination, controlled anger, physical exertion, Roman, in pursuit of enemies, his wolf close to the surface. The connection surged suddenly with awareness. He had sensed my presence along the bond. Surprise, pleasure, and concern flowed back to me before the contact faded, distance reasserting itself between us. My eyes flew open, heart racing. He felt me. For a moment, I could sense what he was feeling, and he knew I was there. Lady Isabel's expression was both pleased and troubled. "The bond forms more quickly than I anticipated. This confirms what Roman's wolf recognized immediately. You are indeed his true Luna." She guided me to a bench along the wall. "But it also means you must learn control rapidly. An uncontrolled bond can distract an alpha at crucial moments." "I didn't mean to disturb him," I said, alarmed at the thought of endangering him through my ignorance. "You didn't," she assured me. "Brief contact affirms the bond, strengthens it, but you must learn to modulate the connection, to keep it open enough to sense danger, but controlled enough to prevent emotional overflow, particularly during combat situations." The remainder of the afternoon was spent in exercises designed to help me access and control the strange new abilities awakening within me. By evening, I could consistently find the bond between Roman and myself, could sense the general direction and emotional state of his wolf without becoming lost in the connection. I could also detect the subtle energy emanating from the moon, even though clouds now obscured it completely. We emerged from the training chamber to find the castle in an unusual state of activity. Servants rushed through hallways with purpose, guards stood at heightened alert at every entrance, and nobles gathered in small clusters, voices hushed with concern. "Something's happened," Lady Isabel murmured, stopping a passing steward. "What news?" "Refugees from the northern villages are arriving, my lady," he reported quickly. "And there are rumors the Black Fang forces are more numerous than first reported. Not a raiding party, but an invasion force." Concern flashed across Lady Isabel's features. "Has the council been convened?" "Lord Hayes has called an emergency session, my lady. They await you in the war room." She nodded dismissal to the steward, then turned to me. "I must attend this meeting. Return to your chambers and rest. You've expended considerable energy today in awakening abilities long dormant." "I want to help," I protested, feeling suddenly useless. "If there are refugees, surely I can assist somehow." Lady Isabel studied me thoughtfully. "The traditional role of Luna includes care for the vulnerable within the pack. Perhaps," she made a swift decision, "go to the Great Hall. The steward there, Gerard, is organizing shelter and provisions for those displaced. Offer your assistance, but remember your new position. You are no longer a servant, but acting with the authority of a potential Luna. The concept felt foreign, presumptuous, but I nodded agreement. As Lady Isabel hurried toward the council chambers, I made my way to the great hall, now transformed from a site of elegant celebration to a makeshift refugee center. Servants arranged pallets along the walls, while cooks brought in cauldrons of soup and baskets of bread. I approached the harried steward, a middle-aged man I knew only by sight. Master Gerard, Lady Isabel suggested I might assist with the refugees. He looked up, recognition dawning slowly. You're the maid who... He stopped, recalibrating in real time. I mean, Miss Elise. Yes, of course. We have families arriving hourly, many with only the clothes on their backs. What do they need most? I asked, already rolling up my sleeves, servant habits returning despite my changed status. Everything, he sighed, but particularly someone to organize the distribution of blankets and sleeping arrangements. With so many arriving at once, we need to prioritize. Elderly and young children first, then pregnant women and injured, then others. I nodded, the task straightforward compared to the mystical exercises of the afternoon. This, at least, I understood. Practical compassion, meeting immediate needs, creating order from chaos. For the next several hours, I worked alongside castle staff I had served with just days before. Their initial awkwardness around me gradually gave way to grateful acceptance, as they saw I had no intention of standing on ceremony while people needed help. I organized family groups together, ensured the elderly had cushions for comfort, found quiet corners for mothers with infants, and distributed blankets with careful attention to need rather than status. The work kept me from dwelling on worries about Roman, though I maintained a gentle awareness of our bond, like a hand resting lightly on a door without opening it. Through that tenuous connection, I could sense he was still physically well, though tension and controlled fury radiated from him in waves. It was nearing midnight when a disturbance at the hall entrance drew my attention. Princess Sophia stood there, surveying the scene with barely concealed distaste, flanked by two of her ladies-in-waiting. Her emerald gown, though simpler than her ball attire, still seemed ostentatious amid the desperate circumstances of the refugees. She moved through the hall with practiced grace, offering condescending words of comfort to selected refugees, primarily those who appeared most pathetically grateful for her attention. When she spotted me distributing soup among a group of children, her perfect features arranged themselves into a mask of surprise. "Miss Elise," she said, her voice carrying just enough to draw attention from those nearby. "How dedicated you are, though perhaps this work is more suited to your experience than the responsibilities of a true Luna." The barb was delivered with such precision that several nearby servants froze, awaiting my response. 2 days ago, I would have lowered my eyes and accepted the subtle humiliation. Now, something different stirred within me, not anger exactly, but a calm certainty that had nothing to do with social hierarchy and everything to do with the silver bracelet at my wrist, the pendant at my throat, and the golden bond stretched taut between myself and a distant alpha. "A true Luna serves where she is needed, Your Highness," I replied, my voice steady. "These people have lost everything defending the borders we all share. Their comfort seems more pressing than court protocol at the moment." Princess Sophia's eyes narrowed slightly, the only indication that my response had surprised her. "How fortunate they are to have your expertise in serving others." She glanced pointedly at the soup ladle in my hand. "One hopes King Roman returns to find his potential. Luna has not reverted entirely to her former station." Before I could respond, an elderly woman I had settled earlier near the fire approached, leaning heavily on a makeshift cane. She stopped before Princess Sophia, her weathered face lifted toward the royal beauty. "Begging your pardon, Your Highness," she said, her voice quavering but determined, "but this young lady has been a blessing from the moon herself. Found my grandson when we were separated in the chaos, made sure my old bones had cushions for the night, brought me warm broth for my empty stomach." She turned rheumy eyes toward me. "She's got the touch, this one. The healing hands, like the Lunas of old." Princess Sophia's perfect composure slipped momentarily before she recovered with a practiced smile. "How charming. Folk wisdom is so quaint." She turned to her ladies-in-waiting. "We've done our duty here. Let us not intrude further on Miss Elise's good works." As she swept from the hall, the elderly woman chuckled softly. Pretty as a picture, that one, but cold as midwinter beneath the shine. Not a drop of moon blessing in her, for all her royal blood. She patted my hand with gnarled fingers. You, though, you've got the silver in your eyes, child. My grandmother was pack healer before the wars. I recognized the signs. I helped her back to her pallet, mulling over her words. What signs? The way the little ones quiet when you touch them, she said, easing down with a grateful sigh. The calm that follows where you walk. Small magics, but true ones. She studied me with surprising sharpness. You're just awakening to it, aren't you? The wolf blood's been sleeping in your line. How can you tell? I asked, amazed at her perception. She tapped her nose with a smile. Some of us old ones still remember how to sense these things, even if our shifting days are long past. You smell of moonlight and possibility, child. And she leaned closer, lowering her voice. Of alpha claim. Our king has recognized what you are, hasn't he? I nodded, somehow certain this woman could be trusted, but I'm still learning what that means. Trust the blood, she advised, settling back against her cushions. It remembers what your mind does not yet know. Her eyes drifted closed, exhaustion claiming her despite her interest in our conversation. I continued my rounds until the great hall finally quieted. Most refugees settled into exhausted sleep after their harrowing journeys. As I helped the kitchen staff clear away the last of the soup cauldrons, Gerard approached, looking somewhat abashed. You've been a tremendous help, Miss Elise, he said quietly. I confess I wasn't certain how to treat you, given your changed circumstances, but you've shown a true Luna's heart tonight. His sincere words touched me more deeply than I expected. I'm only doing what needs to be done, and that, he said with unexpected wisdom, is precisely what separates those worthy of power from those who merely covet it. Exhaustion finally drove me back to my chambers as the castle clock struck 2. I had just begun to unlace my gown when a sharp knock sounded at my door. Lady Isabel entered without waiting for response, her face drawn with worry. The council meeting has just concluded, she said without preamble. The situation is worse than we feared. The Black Fang forces number closer to 500, not the 200 initially reported. They've split into smaller groups to attack multiple villages simultaneously, stretching our defenses thin. Fear clutched at my heart. And Roman, still engaged with one faction near Stonebridge, but now aware of the larger threat, he sent orders to mobilize the reserve guard and all able-bodied men from outlying settlements. She paced the small room, tension evident in her normally composed bearing. There's more. Lord Hayes received intelligence suggesting this attack was planned months ago, but accelerated when news of the selection gathering spread. They saw it as a moment of distraction, I realized, remembering Roman's earlier suspicion. Yes, but there's another element. Lady Isabel's expression grew grim. The Black Fang Alpha, Darius, has made specific inquiries about you since your appearance at court. His spies report he seemed particularly interested in your pendant and Lady Isabel's suggestion of silver mist heritage. Cold dread settled in my stomach. Why would he care about me? The Silver Mist pack was allied with Roman's bloodline for generations before their destruction. There were rumors that the Black Fang were involved in their elimination, though nothing was ever proven. She took my hands in hers. If you truly carry Silver Mist blood, particularly with moon-blessed abilities awakening, you represent a threat to those who thought that lineage extinguished. But I'm just one person, I protested. Barely aware of these abilities, barely trained. One person who appears to be the true Luna to the most powerful alpha in the 7 territories, she corrected. The political implications alone are significant. Add to that the spiritual power of a Silver Mist mooncaller. She shook her head slowly. You've become a target, Elise. Not just a diplomatic inconvenience, but a genuine threat to Darius's ambitions. The weight of her words settled over me like a shroud. In the space of 2 days, I had gone from invisible servant to central figure in a power struggle I barely understood. What should I do? I asked, fighting to keep my voice steady. Continue your training. Learn to control and harness your emerging abilities. And, she hesitated, then continued with reluctance. Prepare yourself for the possibility that Roman may be lured into a trap designed specifically to separate him from you, while the bond is still new and vulnerable. My hand went instinctively to my pendant. I need to warn him. The danger is already known, she assured me. Additional guards have been posted throughout the castle, and Roman has been informed of the specific threat to you. What we need now is to strengthen your abilities so you can defend yourself if necessary. She moved toward the door, then paused. One more thing. I observed you with the refugees tonight. Your natural compassion, your organizational skills, your ability to remain calm amid chaos. These are Luna qualities that no amount of training can instill. Remember that when you doubt yourself. After she left, I moved to the window, gazing out at the cloud-covered sky where the moon hid its face. Somewhere beyond the horizon, Roman fought to protect his territory, his people. And here I stood, awakening to abilities I didn't fully understand, surrounded by court intrigue and ancient vendettas, trying to find my footing on shifting ground. I touched the pendant, feeling its familiar warmth, and carefully opened the bond between us just enough to send a pulse of awareness. I'm here. I'm safe. Be careful. To my surprise, an immediate response flowed back. Not words, but emotions. Fierce protectiveness, determination, and something deeper, more personal that made my heart race. The connection between us was strengthening, despite the distance. Whether that would prove our salvation or our vulnerability remained to be seen. 3 days passed with no sign of Roman's return. The refugee numbers swelled as more villages evacuated, their haggard faces and whispered accounts painting a grim picture of the Black Fang's advance. Inside the castle, tension mounted as noble families debated fleeing to their country estates versus remaining under royal protection. The council met in near-constant session, messengers arriving hourly with updates from the front lines. Throughout it all, I divided my time between Lady Isabel's increasingly intensive training sessions and organizing care for the displaced. The work kept my hands busy, and my mind from dwelling too deeply on the golden thread stretching between Roman and myself, a connection that remained reassuringly intact, but thrummed with his mounting exhaustion and frustration. At Lady Isabel's insistence, I had begun wearing the simple but elegant gowns she provided, my hair arranged in modest styles befitting my ambiguous position, no longer servant, but not yet formally acknowledged as Luna. The transformation in how others perceived me was startling. Guards bowed as I passed. Servants who had once ordered me about now addressed me with deference, and refugees looked to me with hope rather than dismissal. Only among the princesses did I face continued resistance. They maintained a unified front of icy courtesy, masking thinly veiled contempt, particularly Princess Sophia, who seemed to materialize wherever I went, watching with calculating eyes that missed nothing. Dawn of the 4th day found me in the training chamber with Lady Isabel, practicing a skill she called moon centering, drawing calm and clarity from lunar energy stored within my pendant, particularly useful when under pressure. "Focus," she instructed as I struggled to maintain the delicate balance between awareness and control. "You're reaching too aggressively. The moon's blessing isn't seized but invited." I exhaled slowly, adjusting my approach. The pendant warmed against my skin, and gradually, a sense of serene strength flowed through me. Not the frantic energy of panic, but the steady power of deep water. "Better," Lady Isabel nodded approval. "You learn quickly for one with no formal training." "It feels familiar somehow," I admitted, "as though I'm remembering rather than learning." "Blood memory," she confirmed. "Your mother may have performed similar exercises when you were very young, imprinting the patterns before your conscious recollection." Our session was interrupted by the arrival of a guard, his expression grave. "Lady Isabel, your presence is required in the council chamber immediately. Lord Hayes says the matter cannot wait." She frowned, gathering her shawl. "Continue practicing the centering technique, Elise. I'll return when I can." Left alone in the vast chamber, I moved through the exercises as instructed, finding the rhythm easier without observation. The pendant's energy flowed more freely now, responding to my intent rather than my effort. As my confidence grew, I experimentally reached for the bond with Roman, careful to maintain the mental barriers Lady Isabel had taught me to construct. The connection opened like a window, bringing an immediate flood of sensation, physical pain, bone-deep weariness, and simmering rage. Roman was injured, though not critically, pushing himself beyond reasonable limits as the Black Fang forces continued their evasive tactics. Without thinking, I sent a pulse of the moon calm I had just mastered, a gentle wave of cooling energy along the golden thread. The response was immediate: surprise, then gratitude, then a deliberate steadying of his emotions. I felt his wolf recognize the touch of its Luna, drawing strength from the connection in a way that transcended physical distance. For several heartbeats, we remained connected, sharing energy and awareness without words. Then, reluctantly, I began to withdraw, knowing that prolonged contact could be distracting for him. As I did, A warning flashed along the bond, urgent, insistent, accompanied by a single clear impression: danger at home. Trust no one. The connection severed abruptly, leaving me breathless and alarmed. What had he sensed that I couldn't? What danger lurked within the castle walls? I left the training chamber, mind racing with possibilities. The corridors seemed suddenly hostile, shadows concealing potential threats, every passing servant a possible spy. By the time I reached the main hall, my nerves were strung tight as bowstrings. The castle buzzed with unusual activity. Guards doubled at entrances, servants rushing with purpose, nobles gathering in worried clusters. I caught fragments of conversation as I passed. Council divided, reinforcements delayed, succession concerns if the king falls. I found Gerard overseeing breakfast distribution among the refugees, his normally composed demeanor showing signs of strain. "What's happening?" I asked without preamble. He glanced around before answering, voice lowered. "Bad news from the front, miss. The Black Fang forces have united into one large army rather than continuing their scattered attacks. They march toward Stonebridge, where the king's forces are headquartered." "But that's good, isn't it?" I asked, confused. "Roman has been trying to engage them directly rather than chasing raiders across the countryside." "Ordinarily, yes," Gerard agreed. "But our scouts report their numbers have somehow doubled overnight. Nearly 1,000 warriors now, with Darius himself leading the charge. The king's forces barely number 300. Horror washed through me. He's outnumbered more than 3-1, hence the council meeting." Gerard nodded grimly. "Lord Hayes advocates immediate reinforcements from the castle guard. Others argue we cannot weaken our defenses here with the capital potentially under threat." "And Lady Isabel's position?" "Firmly with sending reinforcements," he replied. "But there's more at play. Lord Hayes has raised concerns about the king's judgment being compromised by his connection to you. Suggests the entire northern campaign might be a distraction while the real target is the castle itself, specifically you." The warning along the bond flashed again in my memory. Trust no one. Who else knows about this council debate? "The entire castle by now," Gerard admitted. "Walls have ears, especially when nobles raise their voices." I thanked him and moved away, mind working furiously. If the council was divided, if Roman's judgment was being questioned because of me, if Darius's true target was the castle rather than the border villages, I needed to find Lady Isabel immediately. But as I turned toward the council chambers, Princess Sophia appeared beside me, her emerald gown replaced by a more practical riding habit, though no less elegant for its simplicity. "Miss Elise," she greeted me with artificial warmth. "Just the person I hoped to find. Might we speak privately? I have a proposition that could benefit us both in these troubled times." Every instinct urged caution, but refusing her would only heighten suspicion. "Of course, Your Highness." She led me to a small antechamber off the main hall, closing the door with deliberate care. When she turned to face me, the pretense of warmth had vanished, replaced by cool assessment. "You've created quite the stir in court politics," she began, pacing slowly around me. "A servant girl suddenly elevated to the king's attention. Mysterious pendant, convenient silver mist heritage revealed at precisely the right moment. One might almost think it orchestrated." "I orchestrated nothing," I replied evenly, falling back on the calming technique Lady Isabel had taught me. "The king recognized something in me. I'm still trying to understand it myself." She laughed softly. "Oh, I don't doubt his interest is genuine. Roman has always had unconventional tastes. But surely you realize your position remains precarious. The bond you share, while intriguing, is hardly sufficient to secure your place at court long-term." "I haven't asked for any position," I pointed out. "I serve where I'm needed, whether as Luna or servant." "Noble sentiments," she conceded, "but politically naive. The southern territories still require an alliance with Roman's kingdom. My father's armies could march north within days to reinforce the king's position against the Black Fang. All it would take is a formal betrothal announcement." The implication hung in the air between us. I kept my expression neutral while my mind raced. "Why tell me this?" Princess Sophia's smile didn't reach her eyes. "Because you could withdraw gracefully, claiming the pressure of court life overwhelms you. Return to service with honor and generous compensation. The bond would fade with distance and time, unusual but not unprecedented when one partner is primarily human. And if I declined this generous offer," her smile sharpened, "then I fear your heritage might face uncomfortable scrutiny. Rumors already circulate that Silver Mist descendants carry unstable magic, dangerous to those around them. Some even whisper that your presence triggered the Black Fang attack, drawing the king away from the castle at a critical moment. The threat was clear beneath her diplomatic phrasing. You would sacrifice Roman's happiness for political advantage. I would secure his kingdom's future through proven alliance rather than mystical moonlight bonds, she corrected smoothly. Consider carefully, Elise. You've lived as a servant long enough to understand practical realities. The council already questions your influence. How long before they question your loyalty, your sanity, your humanity? Before I could respond, the door opened abruptly, revealing Lady Isabel. Her gaze swept the scene, missing nothing despite her calm demeanor. Princess Sophia, she acknowledged with a slight nod. I see you've found Miss Elise. Unfortunately, I must borrow her for urgent matters relating to the refugees. Princess Sophia's perfect composure never wavered. Of course, Lady Isabel. We were just concluding our discussion. She turned to me, voice honeyed. Do consider what I said, Miss Elise. Time grows short for all of us. As she glided from the room, Lady Isabel closed the door firmly behind her. What did she want? She demanded without preamble. I related the conversation quickly, watching concern deepen in her expression. She's not entirely wrong about the council's doubts, I concluded. Gerard mentioned Lord Hayes questioning Roman's judgment because of me. Hayes has always favored the Southern Alliance, Lady Isabel confirmed grimly. But there are greater concerns now. The council meeting just concluded. The situation has deteriorated significantly. She guided me to a chair, her expression grave. Scouts report that Darius has surrounded the king's forces at Stonebridge. Roman fights with his back to the river, outnumbered and cut off from retreat. Hayes persuaded the council to delay reinforcements, claiming we must secure the capital first against possible attack. Horror washed through me. That's a death sentence. Roman needs those reinforcements immediately. Yes, Lady Isabel's gaze was intent, and I believe Hayes knows this. The timing is too convenient. The escalation of Black Fang forces, the council's hesitation, Princess Sophia's sudden interest in compromise. I fear we face conspiracy, not coincidence. Roman sensed it, I whispered, remembering the warning. He sent a message through our bond. Danger at home. Trust no one. Lady Isabel's eyes widened slightly. The bond has progressed to direct communication? That's remarkably swift progress. Not exactly words, I clarified. More like impressions with clear intent. But the warning was unmistakable. She rose, pacing the small chamber. This confirms my suspicions. Hayes has likely been communicating with both the Southern Kingdom and the Black Fang, playing all sides to advance his own position. If Roman falls in battle with no acknowledged Luna or heir, the council would gain temporary ruling authority, with Hayes as senior counselor. And Princess Sophia? I asked, recalling her calculated approach. A willing pawn, perhaps, or harboring ambitions of her own as queen to whichever alpha emerges victorious. Lady Isabel's expression hardened. Either way, we cannot wait for the council's approval. Roman needs reinforcements now. What can we do? Hayes controls the castle guard. Not all of them, she corrected. The Royal Wolf Guard takes orders only from those of Blackthorn blood or their Luna. She studied me intently. Your training has progressed rapidly, but what I'm suggesting will test the limits of your emerging abilities and the strength of your bond with Roman. Understanding dawned. You want me to command the Wolf Guard as Luna. It is your right. If the bond is true, if your Silver Mist heritage is genuine. She gripped my shoulders gently. But Elise, you must understand the risk. If you claim Luna authority and fail to be recognized by the Wolf Guard, Hayes will have all the evidence he needs to label you an imposter, possibly a spy. The consequences would be severe. I touched my pendant, feeling its reassuring warmth. And if I do nothing, Roman faces annihilation. The choice, when framed that way, was no choice at all. What must I do? Lady Isabel's expression mixed pride with concern. The Wolf Guard is housed in the northern tower. Their captain, Nathaniel, served Roman's father and is bound by ancient oaths to protect the royal bloodline. If he recognizes your authority, the others will follow. How will he know if I'm truly Luna? The scent of the bond, the lunar energy you now carry, and, she hesitated, a demonstration of moon calling. The Silver Mist were known for their ability to channel moonlight into tangible form, particularly during moments of crisis. I swallowed hard. I've barely mastered the basic exercises. Blood remembers what the mind forgets, she reminded me. Trust your instincts, Elise. They've guided you truly so far. We moved swiftly through the castle, avoiding main corridors where Hayes' supporters might notice our purpose. The northern tower stood apart from the main structure, connected by a covered bridge that swayed slightly in the autumn wind. Guards posted at the entrance straightened as we approached, their eyes widening at the sight of Lady Isabel accompanied by the king's rumored Luna. "We seek audience with Captain Nathaniel," Lady Isabel announced, her tone brooking no argument. "On urgent royal business." The guards exchanged glances but stepped aside without question, one escorting us up the winding staircase to the heart of the Wolf Guard's domain. The chamber we entered hummed with controlled activity, warriors in various states of readiness, cleaning weapons, reviewing maps, or engaged in combat practice. All movement ceased as we entered, dozens of pairs of eyes turning to assess the unexpected visitors. A powerfully built man with silver-streaked dark hair rose from a table covered in tactical maps. Captain Nathaniel carried himself with the quiet authority of one who commanded respect through competence rather than fear. His gaze swept over Lady Isabel with recognition before settling on me with intense scrutiny. "Lady Isabel," he acknowledged with a short bow. "This is unexpected." "Captain," she returned formally, "may I present Miss Elise Evans, who seeks audience regarding urgent matters of kingdom security." Nathaniel's nostrils flared slightly as he assessed me, not rudely, but with the natural caution of a wolf encountering an unknown entity in his territory. "The king's special guest. We've heard the rumors." "More than rumors, Captain," I said, stepping forward with a confidence I didn't entirely feel. "I come with grave news. King Roman is surrounded at Stonebridge, outnumbered 3-1 by Black Fang forces. He requires immediate reinforcement." Murmurs rippled through the assembled warriors. Nathaniel's expression remained carefully neutral. "The council has not authorized deployment of additional forces. Lord Hayes specifically instructed us to maintain our position defending the capital. The council has been compromised," Lady Isabel stated flatly. "Hayes delays reinforcement, while our king faces annihilation." Nathaniel's gaze sharpened. "That's a serious accusation, my lady. One I make with full awareness of its gravity," she replied, "and one Miss Elise can confirm through her direct connection to the king." All eyes turned to me, assessment shifting to something more primal, more challenging. Nathaniel circled me slowly, inhaling deeply. "You carry his scent," he acknowledged. "The bond marking is present, but it's new, untested." He stopped before me, eyes suddenly gleaming wolf gold in challenge. "Why should the Wolf Guard follow you as Luna when you've not been formally acknowledged? When your command contradicts the council's direct orders?" The moment hung balanced on a knife's edge. I felt the weight of ancient tradition pressing against innovation, of established hierarchy against emergent power. Lady Isabel had warned me this would come, the moment when my claim would be tested, when my still-developing abilities would face their first true trial. I closed my eyes briefly, centering myself as I'd practiced, feeling the pendant's warmth intensify against my skin. When I opened them again, I knew from Nathaniel's slight intake of breath that they had shifted to silver. "I don't ask you to follow me, Captain," I said, my voice steadier than I expected. "I ask you to honor your oath to the Blackthorn bloodline. Roman fights for his life, while conspiracy threatens his throne. The Wolf Guard was created to serve the Alpha and Luna directly, independent of political influence." I reached for the connection that stretched between Roman and myself, carefully opening it wider than I had before. Immediately, battle awareness flooded through me. The clash of steel, the snarls of wolves, the scent of blood and desperation. Roman fought in partial shift, claws extended, teeth elongated, surrounded by enemies yet refusing to fall. Without conscious thought, I channeled that awareness outward, projecting it into the space between myself and Nathaniel. The air shimmered with translucent images, glimpses of the battle at Stonebridge, Roman's forces backed against the river, fighting with desperate courage against overwhelming numbers. Gasps echoed through the chamber as the Wolf Guard witnessed the projection. Nathaniel's expression transformed from skepticism to stunned recognition. "Moonsight," he breathed, "a true silver mist gift." The projection faded as my strength waned, the effort of maintaining the connection draining me more quickly than I'd anticipated. I swayed slightly, steadying myself against a nearby table. "Roman needs you," I said simply. "Not for me, not for politics, but for the kingdom's survival. I can lead you to him along the bond path, a route Darius won't expect, because he doesn't know the bond has fully formed." Nathaniel studied me for a long moment, then dropped to one knee, head bowed. "The Wolf Guard recognizes the Luna's authority," he announced formally. "We await your command." Around the room, warriors knelt one by one, until the entire chamber had acknowledged my position. The gesture humbled me even as it strengthened my resolve. "Prepare to ride within the hour," I instructed, the words coming naturally despite my inexperience. 50 warriors for the relief force, 20 to remain and secure the castle against Hayes's potential interference. Nathaniel rose, already issuing orders to his lieutenants. "And you, my Luna? Will you remain safely here?" "No," I said, meeting his gaze steadily. "My place is at Roman's side. The bond will guide us through forest paths unknown to Darius's scouts, allowing us to approach from an unexpected direction." Lady Isabel stepped forward, concern evident in her expression. "Elise, the battlefield is no place for a Luna," I finished gently. Perhaps that's been the problem. Too long separated from each other, Alpha and Luna ruling different domains rather than standing united. I touched my pendant, feeling its energy pulse in harmony with my conviction. Besides, Roman's wolf will fight more effectively with its Luna nearby. The bond strengthens us both. Nathaniel nodded approval, unexpected respect in his eyes. "I'll assign our fastest horses and our most skilled warriors as your personal guard." As the Wolf Guard prepared for departure, Lady Isabel drew me aside, her expression troubled. "This is an extraordinary risk, Elise. Once you leave these walls, Hayes will surely move against your position. And on the battlefield itself, you'll be a primary target for Darius's forces." "I know," I acknowledged, "but something's changing in me, Lady Isabel. The abilities you've helped me awaken, the bond with Roman, they're not separate from who I am, but revealing who I was always meant to be." I met her gaze steadily. "I've spent my life in shadows, invisible to those who thought themselves important. Perhaps that was preparation for this moment, when being overlooked becomes an advantage." She embraced me suddenly, the gesture startling from one usually so formal. "You are indeed your mother's daughter, whoever she may have been," she whispered. "The moon chose well in you." Within the hour, I found myself mounted on a fleet gray mare, dressed in riding leathers Lady Isabel had hastily procured, my hair braided tightly against my head. The pendant gleamed at my throat, fully visible now as a symbol of authority rather than hidden as a secret talisman. Around me, 50 of the Wolf Guard's finest warriors awaited my signal, their disciplined silence a stark contrast to the chaos we would soon enter. As we prepared to depart through a rarely used postern gate, avoiding the main courtyard where Hayes might observe our movements, I felt the bond with Roman pulse with renewed strength. I sent deliberate reassurance along its length. "Help comes. Hold fast." The response warmed through me like summer wine. Determination, fierce joy, and beneath it all, a possessive pride that made my cheeks flush despite the gravity of our situation. Nathaniel brought his mount alongside mine. "The path, my Luna?" I closed my eyes briefly, focusing on the golden thread that connected me to Roman, feeling it pull like a compass needle toward true north. "Northeast through the old forest," I said with certainty. "There's a path along the ridge that Darius's forces have left unguarded." As our company moved out under the gathering dusk, I cast one glance back at the castle that had been my home and prison for so many years. Whatever happened in the coming hours would transform everything, for the kingdom, for Roman, for myself. The humble maid who had polished silver and scrubbed floors now rode to war at the head of an elite werewolf company, guided by ancient magic awakening in her blood, and a bond written in moonlight across her heart. 100 princesses had dreamed of becoming Luna to the Alpha King, but the moon goddess had chosen her humble servant instead, not as prize or consolation, but as equal partner in the battle to come. And in that moment, facing whatever fate awaited us at Stonebridge, I finally understood why. We rode through the gathering darkness like ghosts, the Wolf Guard moving with preternatural silence despite our speed. The old forest closed around us, ancient trees standing sentinel as we followed paths long forgotten by all but the most secretive woodland creatures. My mare responded to the lightest touch, seeming to sense the urgency of our mission, while around me, warriors occasionally shifted partially, eyes glowing amber in the shadows, nostrils flaring as they scented the air for threats. Captain Nathaniel remained close at my side, his presence both protective and evaluative. "You navigate with remarkable certainty for one who's never traveled these woods," he observed, as I guided us through a particularly tangled section of undergrowth toward a hidden stream crossing. I follow what I feel, I admitted, touching the pendant that pulsed warm against my skin. The bond with Roman shows the way, but there's something else, as though the land itself remembers paths my conscious mind doesn't know. He nodded, unsurprised. The Silver Mist were known for their connection to sacred spaces, places where the boundary between worlds grows thin, where moon energy flows strongest. These old forests were part of their territory before the border wars. The revelation sent a shiver through me. You believe the land recognizes my bloodline? Magic leaves traces, he replied simply, particularly old magic tied to packlands. He studied me with renewed interest. Your emergence has significance beyond the royal bond, Luna Elise. The timing, as Lady Isabel suggested, cannot be coincidence. Before I could question him further, a scout returned from his position ahead, dropping to one knee beside my mount. Riders approaching from the east, my Luna. Black Fang scouts, 6 in number. Nathaniel tensed. They've established a perimeter farther out than expected. We must avoid engagement if possible. Stealth remains our advantage. I closed my eyes, reaching along the bond to Roman, sensing his position more precisely now that we'd drawn closer. There's another way, I said, certainty flowing through me from a source I couldn't name. Northwest, through the marshlands. The ground is treacherous, but I can find the safe path. Skepticism flickered across Nathaniel's features. The marshes are dangerous at night, even for werewolves. One misstep could— I know the way, I interrupted, the conviction in my voice surprising even me. Trust me, Captain. After a moment's hesitation, he nodded sharply. Lead on, Luna. I guided our company away from the Black Fang scouts, angling northwest where dense forest gradually gave way to misty lowlands. The half-moon emerged from behind cloud cover, bathing the marsh in silvery light that transformed its treacherous beauty into something otherworldly. As we approached the sodden ground, I felt the pendant grow almost uncomfortably warm, its energy flowing into my consciousness like quicksilver. Suddenly, I could see what others could not. Faint luminescent paths winding through the marshland, ancient trails marked by energy rather than physical signs. Understanding flowed through me. These were moon paths, safe passages through dangerous territory, visible only to those with silver mist gifts. Follow directly behind me, I instructed, guiding my mare onto the glowing trail. Single file, exactly in my tracks. For the next hour, we wound through the marshlands, bypassing quicksand pits and areas where the ground would not support a rider's weight. The wolf guard followed with disciplined precision, though I caught expressions of amazement as we navigated what should have been impassable terrain with unerring accuracy. When we finally emerged on solid ground again, Nathaniel drew alongside me, newfound respect evident in his bearing. The old stories spoke of this, silver mist pathfinding. None have demonstrated such ability in living memory. I had no answer for him. The knowledge had simply been there when needed, rising from blood memory as Lady Isabel had suggested it might. The experience left me both exhilarated and unsettled, aware that I had accessed abilities I still didn't fully comprehend. As we crested a low ridge, the distant sounds of battle reached us, metal clashing against metal, the snarls and howls of werewolves in combat form, the shouts of commanders rallying their forces. Below us, illuminated by moonlight and scattered torches, spread the chaotic tableau of Stonebridge under siege. The village itself burned, orange flames licking at thatched roofs and wooden structures. Along the riverbank, Roman's forces had established a defensive perimeter, their backs to the water, fighting with desperate valor against waves of Black Fang attackers. Even at this distance, I could make out Roman's commanding figure at the center of the fiercest fighting, his partial shift evident in his elongated limbs and the fluid grace of his movements, as he battled multiple opponents simultaneously. Nathaniel surveyed the scene with a tactician's eye. They're pinned against the river with no retreat possible. Darius has positioned archers on the far bank to prevent swimming across. His expression darkened. It's not just victory he seeks, it's annihilation. I reached along the bond, sending awareness of our presence to Roman. His response was immediate, a surge of fierce joy and renewed determination, followed by tactical knowledge flowing directly into my mind. Black Fang positions, their command structure, vulnerable points in their formation. Darius commands from the hill east of the village, I said, relaying what Roman had shared. His elite guard surrounds him, 10 of his most powerful wolves. The main attack force presses from the north and west, while archers cover the south bank of the river. Nathaniel's eyebrows rose slightly at the precision of my intelligence, but didn't question its source. A frontal assault would be costly, even with surprise on our side. We don't attack from the front, I decided, the strategy forming with surprising clarity. We split our force. 30 warriors to target Darius directly on the eastern hill. Cut off the head and the body will falter. The remaining 20, led by you, Captain, will strike from the west, appearing to be the full relief force, drawing attention while the larger group moves on Darius. And you, my Luna? I met his gaze steadily. I go with the force targeting Darius. My presence will strengthen Roman when he senses I'm near, and my abilities may provide advantages unexpected by our enemies. Nathaniel studied me for a long moment, then nodded sharply. A sound strategy, if bold. When the Alpha and Luna fight together, their combined strength often exceeds the sum of their individual powers. He began issuing orders to his lieutenants, dividing the force as I had suggested, as our warriors prepared for battle, checking weapons and armor, some shifting fully to wolf form for maximum speed and power. I took a moment to center myself. The pendant pulsed against my skin in time with my heartbeat, lunar energy flowing through me like cool water. I reached for the techniques Lady Isabel had taught me, drawing strength from the moon above, focusing my mind on the task ahead. Stay close to me, Nathaniel instructed as he returned to my side. Your safety is paramount, not just for the king's peace of mind, but for the future of the kingdom. Within minutes, our forces moved into position with disciplined efficiency. I rode with the larger group circling east toward Darius's command position, 20 seasoned warriors surrounding me in protective formation. The pendant guided me unerringly, its pull strengthening as we drew closer to Roman, the bond between us vibrating like a plucked harp string. We crested a wooded hill overlooking the Black Fang command post, a hastily established encampment where Darius directed the battle, surrounded by his elite guards. Even from a distance, I could distinguish him from the others, a massive figure with jet black hair, his partial shift more pronounced than most, giving him an almost monstrous appearance. He paced restlessly, issuing commands to messengers who raced to deliver his orders to the main battle. At a signal from our lieutenant, the Wolf Guard prepared to charge. I remained mounted, knowing my role was not direct combat but support through the bond. As the warriors tensed for attack, I opened the connection to Roman fully, our minds linking with unprecedented clarity. We're here, I sent, along with images of our position and planned attack. On your signal. His response flowed back with fierce pride and strategic precision. When your force engages Darius, I'll break through with my elite warriors to join you. Pincer movement. Wait for the western attack to begin. We held our position, breath held collectively, as we watched Nathaniel's smaller force emerge from the forest to the west. They attacked with explosive violence, tearing into the flank of the Black Fang forces with such ferocity that it appeared a much larger company had arrived. The distraction worked. Darius immediately dispatched half his personal guard to reinforce the threatened western front, leaving himself with reduced protection. Now came Roman's command through the bond. Our force erupted from concealment, charging down the hillside toward Darius's position. The Black Fang Alpha spun toward the new threat, his face contorting with rage as he realized he'd been outmaneuvered. His remaining guards formed a protective circle around him, but their formation was hastily organized, gaps visible in their defense. The clash when our warriors met Darius's guard was deafening, snarls and howls mixing with the ring of steel and the meaty impact of claws against flesh. I remained at the perimeter as instructed, focusing on maintaining the bond with Roman, channeling lunar energy through the pendant to strengthen our connected awareness. Through the chaos of battle, I sensed rather than saw Roman's movement, breaking through enemy lines with inhuman speed, cutting a path directly toward Darius's position. His elite warriors flanked him, creating a wedge that split the Black Fang forces like a blade through water. Darius recognized the threat immediately. With a roar that echoed across the battlefield, he charged forward to meet Roman himself, abandoning the protection of his remaining guards. The two alphas crashed together with earth-shaking force, centuries of pack rivalry culminating in this single combat. Even partially shifted, both moved faster than purely human eyes could track, claws slashing, bodies twisting with preternatural agility, strength that could shatter stone behind every blow. Through the bond, I felt Roman's fierce concentration, his calculated response to each of Darius's attacks, but I also sensed something else. Darius fought with reckless desperation, as though motivated by more than territorial ambition. As Roman landed a punishing blow that should have staggered his opponent, Darius merely laughed, a maniacal sound that sent chills down my spine. "You think this is about territory?" he taunted, loud enough for me to hear. "You think I care about these human villages?" Roman pressed his advantage, forcing Darius to retreat several steps. "Then why attack?" he demanded. "Why this pointless bloodshed?" Darius's eyes shifted, scanning the battlefield until they locked on me with chilling recognition. "For her," he snarled. "The last silver mist moon caller. The final piece needed to complete the ritual." Understanding crashed through me like ice water. This wasn't about conquest. It was about me, about my bloodline, about abilities I was only beginning to comprehend. The attacks on border villages, the division of forces, even the timing during the selection ceremony, all had been orchestrated to draw Roman away from the castle, to create chaos that would reveal my existence. Through our bond, I felt Roman's momentary shock at the revelation, a split second of distraction that Darius exploited with vicious precision. His claws slashed across Roman's chest, drawing blood and staggering him backward. "The Silver Mist were never meant to survive," Darius continued, pressing his advantage. "Their elimination was necessary. Moon callers interfere with the natural order. Alphas rule through strength alone, not spiritual connection." As he raised his claws for another strike, I acted on instinct, drawing lunar energy through the pendant and projecting it along the bond to Roman. Silver light momentarily enveloped him, deflecting Darius's blow and giving Roman the moment he needed to recover his stance. Darius's head snapped toward me, rage contorting his features. "The bond is already that strong? Impossible." He gestured sharply to his remaining guards. "Take her, alive but subdued." 3 Black Fang warriors broke away from the main fight, charging toward my position with single-minded purpose. My protective guards met them head-on, but in the chaos of battle, one slipped through, lunging toward me with frightening speed. Time seemed to slow as instinct took over. The pendant flared with blinding intensity as I raised my hand, palm outward. Silver energy coalesced before me, solidifying into a tangible barrier that the attacking warrior crashed into with bone-jarring force. He crumpled to the ground, momentarily stunned by the impact. Shock rippled through me. I had created a physical manifestation of lunar energy, a defensive capability Lady Isabel had mentioned, but that we'd had no time to explore in training. The power had simply been there when needed, responding to my desperation. Through the bond, I felt Roman's fierce pride mingled with renewed determination. Drawing strength from our connection, he launched a counterattack against Darius, moving with impossible speed. His claws found vulnerable points in Darius's defense, opening wounds that weakened the Black Fang Alpha with each exchange. Realizing his disadvantage, Darius shifted tactics. With a guttural command to his remaining forces, he disengaged from Roman and charged directly toward me, correctly identifying the source of Roman's unexpected resilience. "Kill the Luna! Break the Alpha!" he roared, his massive form barreling through friend and foe alike in his single-minded pursuit. Terror froze me momentarily as the enormous Alpha bore down on me, his partially shifted form more beast than man, claws extended for a killing blow. But beneath the fear, something ancient and powerful stirred, the blood memory Lady Isabel had described, generations of silver mist moon callers lending their strength across time. The pendant blazed like a captive star as I channeled lunar energy through it, no longer questioning how I knew what to do. Silver light erupted around me in a perfect dome, a manifestation of protective power that rebuffed Darius's charge with such force that he was thrown backward, crashing into his own warriors. Through the bond, Roman's voice reached me with crystal clarity. "Hold the shield, Luna. I'm coming." I maintained the silver dome through sheer force of will, watching as Roman cut through the remaining obstacles between us with lethal precision. Darius struggled to his feet, blood streaming from multiple wounds, hatred radiating from him in palpable waves. "The ritual requires your blood, Mooncaller," he snarled, circling the perimeter of my shield. "Willing or unwilling, you will fulfill your purpose." "What ritual?" I demanded, stalling while Roman drew closer. What could possibly justify this slaughter? A chilling smile spread across Darius's face. "The Severance Ritual, ancient magic to permanently separate werewolves from lunar influence, to free alphas from the moon's constraints, from the need for spiritual balance. His eyes gleamed with fanatical light. With the blood of the last silver mist moon caller, the ritual can finally be completed. No more lunas to temper alpha power. No more bonds to weaken pure dominance. The madness of his vision struck me with horrifying clarity. He sought not just conquest, but fundamental alteration of werewolf nature itself, the severing of ancient connections that balanced power with wisdom, strength with compassion. The moon chose us, I countered, maintaining the shield despite growing exhaustion. That connection is our strength, not our weakness. A pretty lie told by those who fear true power. Darius spat. One I will finally disprove when your blood feeds the ritual stones. He lunged at my shield again, claws raking across its surface with such force that cracks appeared in the silver energy. I staggered under the assault, my strength waning as I struggled to maintain the protective dome. Through our bond, I felt Roman's desperate surge forward, sensing my faltering power. Hold on, Elise. Just a few moments more. Darius struck again, and this time the shield fractured further, silver energy shattering in places like broken glass. As he prepared for a final assault that would breach my failing defenses, a blur of motion crashed into him from behind. Roman, fully shifted now into his massive wolf form, russet fur gleaming in the moonlight. The two alphas rolled across the ground in a tangle of fur and fangs, primal power unleashed without restraint. Even in wolf form, I could sense Roman through our bond, his tactical mind analyzing Darius's weaknesses, while his wolf's instincts executed the perfect attack. Where Darius fought with berserk fury, Roman moved with calculated precision. Where Darius relied on raw strength, Roman leveraged speed and strategy. And most crucially, where Darius fought alone, Roman drew power through the bond we shared, lunar energy flowing between us in a circuit that strengthened with each passing moment. Seeing his disadvantage mounting, Darius attempted to disengage, to regroup with his remaining forces. Roman anticipated the move, herding him away from potential reinforcements, forcing him toward the riverbank where retreat would become impossible. Darius, realizing he was being outmaneuvered, made a desperate gamble. Partially shifting back to humanoid form to gain speech, he raised his voice in command to his scattered forces. To me, the Mooncaller is vulnerable. Several Black Fang warriors turned toward me, seeing an opportunity in my weakened state. As they charged, my protective shield flickered, my strength nearly spent. In that moment of crisis, Captain Nathaniel appeared at my side, placing himself between me and the oncoming threat. For the Luna, he roared, and Wolf Guard warriors rallied to his call, forming a living barrier around me. Through the clash of combat, I kept my focus on Roman, channeling what remained of my energy through our bond. Along the riverbank, the two alphas continued their brutal contest, neither giving quarter, both bloodied but unbroken. Then, in a move of breathtaking coordination, Roman feinted to drive Darius toward what appeared to be an opening, only to reverse direction with impossible speed as Darius committed to his response. Roman's jaws closed around the Black Fang Alpha's throat with lethal precision. A moment of terrible stillness fell across the battlefield as Darius dropped to his knees, blood pulsing from the mortal wound. Roman released him, shifting partially back to speak, his voice carrying across the suddenly silent field. "The Black Fang pack is broken," he announced. "Those who surrender will be shown mercy. Those who continue to fight will share their alpha's fate." Across the battlefield, Black Fang warriors lowered their weapons one by one, recognizing their defeat with the fall of their leader. Roman approached the dying Darius, his expression grim but composed. "Your ritual dies with you," he said quietly. "The moon's blessing will continue as it has for generations, not as constraint but as balance, not as weakness but as strength." Darius's eyes, already glazing with approaching death, found mine one final time. "You understand nothing," he whispered. "The severance has already begun. The stones await. Only the final sacrifice remains." His body slumped to the ground, life fleeing as his blood soaked into the riverbank. Around us, the battle's conclusion played out as Black Fang forces surrendered their weapons, Wolf Guard warriors securing prisoners and tending to wounded comrades. I slid from my mare on unsteady legs, exhaustion threatening to overwhelm me now that immediate danger had passed. Roman was at my side instantly, catching me before I could fall, his arms solid and secure around my waist. "Elise," he murmured, my name a prayer on his lips. "You should never have been in danger." "I thought you safe at the castle." "The castle held its own dangers," I replied, leaning into his strength. Lord Hayes conspired with both the Southern Kingdom and Black Fang. He delayed reinforcements deliberately while Princess Sophia offered me compromise that amounted to surrender. Roman's expression darkened. Hayes will answer for his treachery when we return. If we return, I amended, remembering Darius's final words. He spoke of ritual stones, of the severance already beginning. Whatever he planned didn't die with him. It continues somewhere, awaiting only the final sacrifice. Captain Nathaniel approached, respectfully waiting for Roman's acknowledgement before speaking. My king, scouts report a strange structure on the northern hilltop. Stone pillars arranged in a circle, recently erected. They bear markings similar to those on the Luna's pendant, but corrupted somehow. Roman and I exchanged glances, the same realization flowing through our bond. The ritual site, he said grimly. We must secure it immediately. Despite my exhaustion, I knew I had to accompany them. Whatever magic had been prepared there, my Silver Mist heritage might provide crucial insight. Roman seemed to understand without words, keeping me steady at his side as we made our way toward the northern hill. The site, when we reached it, radiated wrongness that made my skin crawl. 7 black stone pillars arranged in a perfect circle, each carved with perverted versions of the symbols on my pendant. At the center stood an altar stone stained with what could only be blood from previous sacrifices. The entire structure hummed with malevolent energy, a corruption of lunar power twisted toward dark purpose. This is ancient magic, Nathaniel murmured, keeping a respectful distance. Dark magic from before the Pact Treaties, when alphas ruled through terror rather than respect. I approached cautiously, the pendant growing painfully hot against my skin as it reacted to the corrupted symbols. He needed my blood, Silver Mist blood, to complete the ritual, to permanently sever werewolves from lunar influence. Roman's hand tightened around mine. How do we undo this? The ritual is partially completed. I can feel its effects already, a subtle weakening of the connection to the moon. I touched my pendant, feeling its pure energy contrast with the twisted power before us. Blood memory stirred again. Knowledge rising from depths I hadn't known existed within me. Purification, I said with sudden certainty. The corruption can be cleansed through the blood freely given by one who carries both lunar blessing and alpha bond. Roman's expression grew alarmed. Blood magic is dangerous, Elise, particularly for one still learning to control her abilities. Not blood magic, I corrected gently. Blood offering, a willing sacrifice of a few drops, given in love rather than taken in violence. The intent matters as much as the substance. He studied me for a long moment, then nodded slowly. What must we do? Guided by instinct and blood memory, I approached the altar stone. Stand opposite me, I instructed Roman. Place your hands on mine across the stone. Our combined energy, alpha strength and Luna wisdom, will channel through the bond to cleanse the corruption. As Roman took position across from me, I drew a small knife from my belt. With steady hands, I made a shallow cut across my palm, then passed the knife to Roman, who did the same without hesitation. We pressed our bleeding palms together above the altar stone, the mingling of our blood symbolic of the union between Alpha and Luna, between strength and compassion, between power and wisdom. The pendant blazed with silver fire as lunar energy surged through me, amplified by the bond between us, purifying and cleansing as it spread from our joined hands to the corrupted stones. The black pillars trembled, the twisted symbols upon them glowing red then white as the purification magic burned away the corruption. With a sound like distant thunder, the pillars cracked simultaneously, toppling outward away from the altar stone. The malevolent energy dissipated like mist before sunrise, leaving only clean, clear moonlight bathing the hilltop. Exhausted beyond measure, I swayed on my feet. Roman caught me against his chest, his arms encircling me with gentle strength. Through our bond, I felt his wonder, his gratitude, his fierce pride in what we had accomplished together. 100 princesses dreamed of becoming Luna, he murmured against my hair, but the moon goddess knew what I needed before I did. Not a political alliance, but true partnership. Not a decorative queen, but a spiritual equal. I looked up at him, seeing the truth of his words reflected in his eyes. I spent my life invisible, watching from shadows. I never imagined standing in the light like this. The shadows prepared you, he said, understanding flowing through our bond. They taught you to see what others missed, to listen when others spoke over you, to understand the true workings of power from a position no one thought to guard against. His fingers traced the line of my jaw with infinite tenderness. You were never ordinary, Elise. You were extraordinary in waiting. As dawn broke over the battlefield, painting the sky in shades of rose and gold, Roman gathered our forces for the return to the castle. The wounded were tended, the dead honored, prisoners secured for transport. Despite the victory, a solemnity hung over our company. The price of triumph had been paid in blood and sacrifice. During the journey home, Roman rode beside me, our bond humming with shared awareness that made words largely unnecessary. We understood without speaking that challenges awaited us at the castle. Lord Hayes's conspiracy to unravel, Princess Sophia's ambitions to address, court politics to navigate, as my position shifted from rumored Luna to acknowledged partner. Yet beneath these practical concerns flowed a deeper current of certainty. Whatever came next, we would face it together, Alpha and Luna in true balance, for the first time in generations. The castle appeared on the horizon as afternoon light gilded its towers. Word of our approach had preceded us, and a crowd gathered in the main courtyard. Servants, nobles, refugees, and the remaining princesses, all straining for first glimpse of the returning king. As we rode through the gates, I saw Lady Isabel waiting on the steps, relief evident in her usually composed features. Beside her stood Lord Hayes, his expression carefully neutral, though tension radiated from his rigid posture. Princess Sophia and her delegation watched from a balcony, their diplomatic smiles belied by the calculation in their eyes. Roman dismounted first, then turned to help me from my mare with deliberate ceremony. Taking my hand in his, he led me up the castle steps until we stood before the assembled court, our joined hands raised in traditional symbol of Alpha and Luna united. "The threat from the Black Fang has ended," he announced, his voice carrying across the hushed courtyard. "Darius has fallen. Those who followed him have surrendered or fled. Our borders are secure once more." Cheers erupted from the gathered crowd, particularly from the refugees who saw in our victory the possibility of returning to their homes. Roman waited for the noise to subside before continuing. "Our triumph was made possible through the courage of the Wolf Guard," he acknowledged with a nod to Nathaniel, "and through the power of true partnership between Alpha and Luna." His gaze turned to me, warmth evident even to those who couldn't feel our bond. "In Elise Evans, the moon goddess has blessed our kingdom with not just a queen, but a Luna of rare gifts. The last daughter of the Silver Mist Pack, a moon caller whose abilities helped turn the tide of battle." Murmurs rippled through the courtyard as nobles and servants alike processed this formal acknowledgement of my status. I stood straight beside Roman, no longer the shadow girl who avoided notice, but a woman growing into her power, her purpose, her place. "The selection ceremony is concluded," Roman continued, his tone brooking no argument. "The moon has made its choice through blood and bond. In 3 days' time, at the full moon, Elise and I will complete the Luna ritual, uniting our kingdom under the dual strength of Alpha and Luna as tradition intended." Lord Hayes stepped forward, desperation evident in his too smooth manner. "Your Majesty, while we all rejoice in your victory, perhaps matters of succession might be discussed privately with the council before formal announcements are made. The Southern Alliance will be renegotiated," Roman interrupted coldly. "After you explained to the council why reinforcements were delayed despite direct orders, and why correspondence between yourself and Darius was discovered among the Black Fang Alpha's possessions." Hayes paled, his composure cracking. "Lies and misunderstandings, sire. I have served the crown faithfully for—" "Take him to the North Tower," Roman ordered the guards flanking the steps. "He will await trial for treason alongside any others implicated in his conspiracy." As Hayes was led away, protesting his innocence, Princess Sophia descended from her balcony, her perfect features arranged in diplomatic concern. "Your Majesty," she began, voice pitched to carry to the assembled crowd, "the Southern Territories naturally congratulate you on your victory and unusual choice of Luna. However, my father had certain expectations regarding our kingdom's alliance, which will be honored through trade agreements and mutual defense pacts," Roman assured her smoothly. "Your journey will not have been wasted, Princess Sophia. You return home not with a crown, but with favorable terms that will benefit both our peoples for generations." The subtle reminder of her failed ambition colored her cheeks, but years of court training allowed her to maintain her composure. "How generous," she replied, her smile not reaching her eyes. "I look forward to dancing at your Luna ceremony." As the crowd dispersed and Roman turned to address urgent matters with his captains, Lady Isabel drew me aside, her expression a mixture of pride and wonder. "You've returned transformed," she observed, noting the silver light that still occasionally flickered in my eyes when emotions ran strong. The bond has fully formed. And more, I admitted. Abilities awakened that I still don't fully understand. Moon paths, protective shields, purification magic. It's as though a door has opened inside me that I never knew existed. The moon's blessing reveals itself when needed, she said with a knowing smile. You'll learn to control these gifts with practice, to channel them with purpose rather than desperation. Her expression sobered, though I fear you may need them sooner than we might wish. I followed her gaze to where Princess Sophia conferred quietly with her advisors, their expressions suggesting plans already forming to salvage advantage from apparent defeat. She won't accept her dismissal gracefully, I noted. Few ever do, Lady Isabel agreed, but that is tomorrow's battle. Tonight, rest and recovery take precedence. You've earned both. The following days passed in a whirlwind of activity. Lord Hayes's conspiracy unraveled under investigation, revealing connections to both the Southern Kingdom and Black Fang Pack that had been years in development. Princess Sophia and her delegation departed with formal courtesy, masking simmering resentment, their ambitions thwarted but not abandoned. Throughout it all, Roman and I worked in harmony, he addressing military and political concerns, while I organized care for returning refugees and began studying the Luna responsibilities with Lady Isabel's guidance. Our bond strengthened daily, communication between us flowing more freely as we learned its nuances. On the evening before the full moon ceremony, Roman found me in the castle gardens, seated beside a reflecting pool, where silver moonlight danced across the water's surface. He joined me on the stone bench, taking my hands in his with characteristic gentleness. Having second thoughts? He asked, only half teasing as he sensed my contemplative mood through our bond. I smiled, squeezing his fingers reassuringly. Not about us. Never about us. I gazed up at the nearly full moon, but about everything that comes with it. The responsibilities, the expectations, the politics. 3 weeks ago I was scrubbing floors, invisible to everyone. Tomorrow I become Luna, to the most powerful alpha in the 7 territories. You already are Luna, he corrected softly. Tomorrow merely formalizes what the moon goddess decided long before either of us knew. Warmth flowed through our bond, his absolute certainty steadying my lingering doubts. How can you be so sure? 100 princesses arrived for your selection, each perfectly trained for this role. I'm still learning the most basic court protocols. Roman's laugh was unexpected, a rich sound that reminded me how rarely he expressed joy before our connection. Protocols can be learned, diplomatic phrases can be memorized, but a true Luna's heart? He touched my pendant gently. That comes from within, not from training. I've watched you these past weeks, organizing refugee care, mediating disputes among returning villagers, connecting with pack members from all stations. You see people, Elise, not titles or usefulness, but individuals with needs and strengths. That cannot be taught. His words eased something tight within my chest. I never dreamed of this life, I admitted. Never imagined standing in the light rather than hiding in shadows. Perhaps that's precisely why the moon chose you, he suggested. You never sought power for its own sake. You simply wished to help where you could, to ease suffering where you found it. His fingers traced the line of my cheek. The best rulers are often those who never aspired to rule. As moonlight silvered the garden around us, Roman drew me gently to my feet. One more night as simply Elise, he murmured. Tomorrow you become Luna to the kingdom, though you've been Luna to my heart since the moment our eyes met across the ballroom. Not simply Elise, I corrected, leaning into his embrace. I was never simply anything, even when I believed myself ordinary. None of us are. His smile held understanding beyond words. The most profound wisdom from my extraordinary Luna. Under the watching moon, Alpha and Luna stood in perfect balance, strength tempered by compassion, power guided by wisdom, 2 halves of a whole that neither had recognized as incomplete until they found each other. 100 princesses had dreamed of becoming Luna to the Alpha King, bringing wealth, status, and political alliance to the position. But the moon goddess had chosen her humble maid instead, not for what she might become, but for who she had always been beneath the shadows. A light strong enough to balance even the most powerful alpha, a heart wise enough to guide a kingdom toward compassion rather than mere strength, a spirit brave enough to step from darkness into the silver glow of her own remarkable destiny.